Hello, welcome to the Exatos.
Oh no, I'm haunted by the ghost of Ernest P. Worrell. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Think Tank.
That's
What's
your
up,
guy.
man?
That's your Gremlins 3 guy.
Yeah. So we just watched Gremlins 2 last night because Amelia's here, and it's my fault that she's not on the show because I'm talking loudly, and I think it would confuse her. Yes, because like there's no real wall. So, but she could tell you it was weird. Gremlins 2 is a weird movie, and we just like I don't think enough people really get how big of a movie Gremlins 2 is. So many things happen in it, right? Like it's just so big. It's crazy.
And also, just because of how good Gremlins 1 was, Gremlins 2 was basically guaranteed to like be a hit, even if it
No matter what.
It was going to be a hit, like a box office hit at least.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I don't know. Does Gremlins 2 have the same critical acclaim? Do either of them have critical acclaim?
That's the thing that's really confusing. I guess that's the way to put it. Like, does the Gremlins 1 have enough critical acclaim that they really tarnished its reputation with Gremlins 2? Because Gremlins 2 is such a departure from Gremlins 1. But it's a departure in the sense that it's a takeoff on a runway. It goes off flying. And where Gremlins 2 goes is everywhere. It literally soars the sky to every possibility. It hits because, and not only does it hit every conceivable, I mean, you have to think of it like it's opening up an IP. So if you were to look at Star Wars has a value because it's so much of the space opera genre that they own, right? Well, Gremlins covers a lot of territory in Gremlins 2. They're expanding the universe so that they can have more Gremlins dolls, action figures, cartoons, comic books, and series about the Mogwai. Like you could see how big Gremlins could be from Gremlins 2 because you have all of these different characters, different kinds of gremlins that are emerging. You'll find out about genetic modifications a thing. But while that's happening and they're expanding this universe where there's electric gremlins, space gremlins, whatever kind of gremlins, they're also that's the big spoiler, I think. But it's about Trump, right? This is like David's big observation is that, the entire Clamp character in New York City who's this architectural, building all these buildings, the biggest building builder in New York City is clearly, he's got his book, it's clearly Clamp is Trump, right? So Trump is this main character, literally, and he's the main character of Gremlins in a lot of ways. And he's not a bad guy. They're not presenting him as a bad guy. Everyone under him's scarier than he is.
Right. He's not a bad guy. He's he's got all, but everybody who's working under him is just like so ambitious and so uptight and so whatever, but he's his own thing. And you'll find like throughout the movie there's like indicators like, oh man, this guy's evil company. And then he's like he the biolab place that's in there where they first bring the Mogwai, and he's just like, oh god, we could have had we could have had 2 psychiatrists and a plastic surgeon in there, and we had to have this. Like, he's like reacting against. He's like, I told you those guys were trouble, you know. And then like at the end, he sees Billy's like painting of Kingston Falls, and which is Back to the Future. It's the same town
it's
in
the
Back
town
to the Future.
It's
And he's like,
literally
I
the-
want to build this. So for everybody who's like made the connection, obviously, like admitted by the writer of Back to the Future 2, Biff's character is modeled after Trump. Now you have a character modeled after Trump in Gremlins 2 saying, I want to build the town in Back to the Future. Like, I like this. You know, so there's something to that.
And he wants to scale it because eventually, like, he wants to rebuild America in the image of the Back to the Future town, which is really
make America great again.
Great again.
When he reacts to that image, it's like he's like, that's what I want, you know.
Gremlins 2 totally predicts Trump in the most like specific ways. It's really interesting. And just the electric gremlin being this major part of the story is it's this real energy thing where he becomes the energy and the lightning, and it's the thing that consumes and destroys the gremlins. But a main thing is a lot of people look at the gremlins as sort of like aliens for some reason. I mean, they are like creatures. They're corporeal, right?
They do have, says that the guy in the vampire outfit, he makes that argument that he's like, they could come from another dimension or outer space
or a dimension, though. See, because these are physically, they're corporeal, they have physicality, but they're clearly demons. Like, these are Chinese demons, magical demons, whatever.
That's
kind of
what Mogwai means. And now they've done one screening that I know of the 2.5-hour version of the original Gremlins. And in that 2.5-hour version, from looking at the script, you can see Billy's dad is on the plane. By the way, that's the actor. So the actor who plays Billy's dad, he's like a famous songwriter. He did Joy to the World. He did Steppenwolf's The Pusher, which is like great. I said, God damn, The Pusher Man. That's like, he's also in Black Stallion. But there's this whole thing where like the Gremlins in Gremlins 2, you just think, oh, they're trying to carry this. I think there is the argument that they're just carrying on the same premise where it's like, we're going to have these different types of Mogwais. We're going to take that further. There's still going to be Stripe. I never noticed, this is how it went over my head, is that Stripe is the first gremlin. That's why he's the leader. And Andreas made the point, it's like, have you seen Multiplicity, where you have like every character that follows, it's like it's like a copy of a copy of a copy. And so as more Mogwais get generated, they're further and further removed from that original prototype. And so, but the thing is that there's all through Gremlins 2, there's all these indicators that they're the same gremlins. Like, this is why, like, Mogwai means
two things though, really quickly. So like in Multiplicity, we should almost go back and cover that movie at some point, because the Michael Keaton Multiplicity movie has a really deep Kabbalistic aspect to it. It's not just that a copy of a copy, it's also like the order in which the characters emerge, with their emphasis of being the tough guy and then being the romantic, listener. These characters are coming out of, oh, hold on. Boom. What's up? Welcome. Have you seen Gremlins 2 or Multiplicity with Michael Keaton? And do you think that the different sequence of Michael Keaton's clones coming out has to do with the Kabbalah?
Oh my God.
No and yes.
No to the first question and yes to the second question.
Okay, so we've just been covering Gremlins 2 because it's a movie everyone needs to see, and it's weird that they haven't, but it's basically all about Trump rebuilding America in the image of the Back to the Future town. And then his company gets these demonic Chinese Mogwai demon creatures and genetically modifies them and gives them...
Hold on, let me just stop really quick, because I've got a technical question that's important. Are the gremlins that come out of Gizmo, are those still Mogwai?
Yeah, first. So the way it works is that Mogwai, if you put water on a Mogwai, it will reproduce more Mogwai. So it galvanizes, or it splits into different Mogwai, and they'll have different personalities in a different sequence. Okay, and eventually,
if they feed them after midnight is when they turn into the gremlin.
When they feed them after midnight, they turn into these monstrous creatures, the gremlins that are dangerous, right? And so usually what seems to happen is Gizmo gets water on him. And in Gremlins 2, there's a guy who's by the water fountain and he has a Hitler mustache and he's drinking and fixing the water fountain. And I think what they're saying, Spielberg is saying, he might as well be Hitler. This guy might as well be Hitler because he's working on the infrastructure for the system at the Trump Tower. And he's the guy who's shooting the water out of the water fountain that hits Gizmo. So this guy that might as well be Hitler creates this demonic problem that everyone has to deal with at Trump Tower. That's kind of the
right.
Is that why gremlins are associated with World War II? I don't really actually know what they are.
Yeah.
Well,
so can I speak to this? So
please.
in the original Gremlins, you have Mr. Futterman, right? Murray Futterman, and his wife, and he's a World War II vet. And so his reaction, the reason why the movie's called Gremlins is because at the beginning, he's like kind of drunk and he's walking home or whatever. He shouldn't drive. And he's like talking about WWII, that the gremlins were messing with our mechanics. Well, Gizmo's named Gizmo because of that connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
The movie's called Gremlins because he sees the gremlins and he's like, holy, they're real. The gremlins that they talked about were real. And then, but the cool thing is like in Gremlins 2, they give all these indicators that they remember everything from the first one, meaning they're the same demon. So Mogwai means demon in Chinese. So in the original script, which is I believe in the new 2.5-hour version of Gremlins that will eventually be released probably when Gremlins 3 comes out, they'll probably like present that. But on the airplane, a stewardess sees the Mogwai and he says it's a Mogwai, and she goes, it's a demon, because she speaks Chinese. So the gremlins in Gremlins 2, like there's all these indicators. One of them is one of the gremlins looks at the microwave and he says microwave, and then he throws a bunch of like pots and stuff in there, and they're like, you're not supposed to do that, and then it explodes.
Oh, like a
But
nuke?
in the first Gremlins, a gremlin gets killed in the microwave, so it gets pushed into the microwave, so he remembers. So this also speaks to it being like demonology.
Microwave.
Because he's like, okay, I learned that lesson. Well, how did he learn that lesson if he's a new gremlin? So
right.
there's that. There's also the thing where like with the gremlins from the Japanese being put into our planes to mess with us. So any malfunction they could blame on the Japanese.
And the pilots would say that if there was something wrong with the plane, that there was a gremlin on the wing of the plane. And so the Twilight Zone has that episode where this dude in a plane is afraid of this creature that's pulling apart the wing of the plane, and the gremlin on the wing of the plane. So gremlins have always been, like,
of course,
just,
that gremlin, not the movie, but in the show, is totally an Ewok. There's just an Ewok running around.
But what is interesting about the gremlin, and especially when you see the Gremlins 2 electrical gremlin, is that beyond bugs in your computer, there should be gremlins in your machines. And that's
right.
really...
And it's Bugs Bunny. Could that have been a gremlin? So that's in the first one. They show that flash of Bugs Bunny. It's also the television thing that Gizmo is obsessed with television because he is Gizmo. This is Gizmo. So the television becomes, he's seeing the equivalency.
It's funny too because the word bug also means demon.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Where?
Like the etymology of
like bog. Like bog.
It actually translates to demon.
Bog means God, but like, I get why Catholics would be confused.
If you look up the original the conception of like the boogeyman, it was basically like the boggy man, and that was the original version of where like that's where the word bug came from, because the boogeyman and the bog, when you're talking about like in the evil spirit sense, it makes you feel like like all twitchy and sort of like dirty, or like you get like a odd tingling. Well, and that's what bugs would make people feel like. They would feel like they're covered in bugs. So like the feeling of evil, they equated to like how bugs made them feel. So I believe that was like the origin.
Is that why Bugs Bunny is named Bugs Bunny?
He's the bunny god, because bog means God. It's a Slavic word for God. So
bog is like the black god.
When people started killing Slavic people, they decided to call the same God that they were worshiping. They're like, no, but see, they're Slavic, so their God, they're not really worshiping Jesus. They're worshiping the devil. That's just how that goes. So eventually, the word bog and bug and all these things, but originally and still today, if you go to any Slavic culture, in like the Russians to the Serbians, anywhere in between. Bog, like Romania, like Bog is just the word they use for God. And there was the Bogdanovich, the Bogdamils. The Bogdamils are the Christian, in Bosnia, right? So yes, just saying, like it could be good and evil. Bog doesn't have to mean the bad stuff. So if Bugs Bunny is Bog's Bunny, then it might be like more of a like the bunny god, but maybe it's a demon. I mean, I guess he's definitely a demon.
He's fighting the gremlins, right?
The whole thing with like Gremlins 2 is that they're trying to tell, like, there's a scene where these mimes are walking by for no other reason than to explain to you that this whole movie is symbology, that there's a bunch of things being said in front of you, but you should be paying attention to all the imagery, right? And then there's a bunch of symbolism, like when the bat mogwai flies through the window, it makes a bat symbol silhouette like a cartoon.
All Warner Brothers. So
all Warner
Bugs
Brothers.
Bunny, Warner Brothers.
It starts out with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. Gremlins 2 starts out with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck opening the movie.
Like Warner.
Yeah.
Warner.
There should be Warner siblings in 2026, I was thinking, but
I feel like this topic, Thomas, is like almost the same parallel to the Cool World episode that we did with like the World War II connection and like the nuke, the bomb.
The cartoons end up. It's hard. It's very distracting to see myself as Thomas the Tank Engine.
It just needed we need more music for it, but I think it's Thomas the Think Tank Engine. There's something there.
We're working on it. It might have to be like a full game, but I think honestly, the connection between Cool World and Gremlins, because I got the same question, is that should we just kill all of the Cool World cartoons because they're essentially demon/Nephilim? And the same thing for Gremlins. Does that mean that Gizmo's a bad guy? Like, should we have just taken Gizmo out because he's sort of like the path to good intention, right? He seems like he's good, but every single time a new Mogwai is created, it's a bad version of Mogwai.
No, it's just afterwards, and like Gizmo's on fire. I mean, Gizmo is fire.
Even in the first movie,
the brain. What was wrong with the intelligent one?
They're mean. They're
the intelligent mean Gizmo wasn't mean. The intelligent Mogwai was fine. He was dangerous because he was creating an entire refugee migrant problem by introducing like a gremlin population that was going to displace locals.
For example, Spike, when Spike's created for the first time, he's already got like sharp teeth and like a nasty attitude, which it almost implied that Gizmo's the only altruistic good one that you actually give to your child as a present, and all these other gremlin dangerous and they could actually harm you, which makes me think that if Mogwai's demon, Gizmo's a demon. Like, and Gizmo's the source.
But not all demons are bad. See, this is again with the Catholic perspective. Like, realistically, demons don't. The word genius and jinn are all related to having inspiration and having a platonic thought. These are not. You're using this word to mean like something that serves the devil. There's no evidence that the Gizmo is serving the devil. There's no evidence that Gizmo is serving the devil. There's no evidence that Gizmo is an agent of Satan. That's when you're using that word, the context that you're trying to display.
No, I think that's disingenuous because now you're playing with the level of etymology that a large lion's share of writers and consumers of the Gremlin series are not putting.
There's no way that Spielberg is presenting Mogwais as serving the devil. He's presenting them as loose cannons that are free agents, and those free agents maybe are dangerous.
They're basically us, and the whole thing kind of like, especially Gremlins 2.
Yeah,
it feels like this is us passing the blame of what it is that we do onto another entity, when really this is us. Like, that's the whole thing with the Mogwai comes much responsibility. You have basic rules, you follow these rules, it's all good.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate your idea.
Right.
We need to kill.
I feel like that's what God is saying with the Garden of Eden.
But at the same time, we should learn to, get like to have a connection with Gizmo where he can teach us, because he's got value. I mean, it's just you got to be careful with that guy, because if you treat it wrong, if you feed it after midnight.
But I guess the point being that Gizmo did Danny just get lucky that he got the one nice Mogwai? But if he had gotten Spike,
Billy, you mean? Are you
Billy? Sorry, if Billy had gotten, yeah, there was a shining slip, a Kubrickian slip.
I feel like it's like you're saying that if because someone might eat the fruit in the Garden of Eden, we shouldn't ever have the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden's bad.
Dad brought home a cool little Mogwai as a gift, but it was freaking Spike the Mogwai. Now all of a sudden, I feel like Billy and his dad.
But there was no Spike before Gizmo. See, this is the thing. As long as you didn't get water on Gizmo and you did what God asks of you, then you're fine.
Sounds like a weird eugenics.
It sounds like the Bible. It sounds like the Torah. It sounds like the law of God.
It sounds like this is all allegorical. This is what we're dealing with. We all have our demon. There's a responsibility that comes with being a human being in the first place. That feels like what Gremlins is speaking to. If there's a moral to Gremlins, it's that this relates to us. And that's why, like, the old Chinese man at the end, he's like, you don't understand, like you don't get it, because it takes all the experience to really grasp like the sensitivity of this, like.
But he was still willing to make a buck, even if he knew that he was putting someone.
He was not. Mogwai is not for sale.
Mogwai not for sale.
He'll sell you freaking dragon breath. He'll sell you all kinds of trinkets.
Mogwai not for sale.
It was his grandson that sells it, right? Or his nephew.
Yeah, Mogwai not for sale. So the whole thing is like it's stolen, and then it's abused, it's mistreated, and then what happens isn't good for Gizmo. Like what all these things do to Gizmo is the worst. Like white noise torture. They take Gizmo and they put his face over a Xerox machine and just flash lights in his eyes.
What bright lights do to it. And it's just, they don't kill Gizmo though, which is interesting. I think that has to do with that they know that if they kill Gizmo, that if they die out, that's it for them. There's no possibility that they can return. And that's a big point of Gremlins, is that it's the same Gremlins that show up again. So they're like, that really speaks to the demonology aspect, because here we have, so we got Samael and all the other, like the idea is that they show back up again and they're the same freaking ones. So they're like, and they learn each time, so they have more of a possibility of like taking over the world, like, the real ending of Little Shop of Horrors, right? Where it's like that, that's their goal basically. We got Gizmo is literally the average citizen getting psyoped to death in 2026. Sure,
Gizmo he does take up arms in Gremlins too.
He watches Rambo.
Yeah, he turns into Rambo.
Once he watches Rambo, it changes him, and he knows
to survive the war. You have to become war. Yeah.
But I think the point is in like that Rambo never recovers. Rambo's got this PTSD forever, and like Gizmo's never really going to be over that, because he remembers everything.
Because they drew first blood.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But it's like humans that did this to him, because humans created these other, like, humans got him wet. Like maybe it's his own fault. He's standing around. He should have been more careful. But the dude shooting water, he had like a good amount of time that he could like hidden from the water. I don't know.
How badass is it that Gizmo kills Spike when Spike is a spider with fire?
True.
Because he can't handle bright lights, but he lights that match and he shoots it so he's like wielding the thing that he knows is so dangerous.
He's conquered. Himself. Yeah, he's conquered his fear.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing will. He's not.
Spike proteins being so big after COVID, like how we had so many talk about spike protein.
I said it last night while we were watching it. I was like, spike protein, and like, everything that's happening right now is so insane.
There's a lot of Twin Towers. There's a lot of Twin Towers references in Gremlins 2. Like, for instance, it's Gremlins 2, and then there's these twins that are working in the tower that are the two scientists that are the ones responsible for all the different human hormones and different research chemicals that get into the different gremlins that integrate very quickly into their DNA, making the brilliant gremlin that's trying to immigrate all these gremlins into their cities and take over their, apartment leases and all these other things. This gremlin that comes on a talk show to advocate for the social justice of this new population of displaced gremlins, right? I mean, it's so big. It's so big, this movie.
Do I need to watch both or just the number two?
Ooh,
I
good
mean,
question.
They're
I
so
think you need to
different
watch
from each
both
other.
of them, like in truth, but like for what we're talking about, you only need to watch the second one. But the first one's very important, right? I mean, it has. I would say watch the first one for the Christmas quality. It's a good Christmas
And
movie.
the rules, you know, it's almost the same. You might not have seen either of these either, but it's like asking, do you have to watch Witchboard 1 before Witchboard 2? Like, you don't really have to, or even Back to the Future. You don't even really have to watch. Did you smile? Have you actually seen Witchboard 1 and 2? Okay, well,
Part of it.
this is like literally the best Ouija board movie ever. But like the first one establishes the rules of how you're supposed to do it and what can go wrong, very much like Gremlins. And then the second one, it just makes it like more modern, a little bit more popular, incorporates like more fashion of the day and sort of like cultural references, which again is exactly like Gremlins too.
What about Eyes Wide Shut? People will say this whole thing that, oh, Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie. It really is a Christmas movie. It's just you have
course.
the opposite of what happens to Scrooge happens with Bill, because at every point along the way he should realize what's important. If you make the argument that he loses his daughter at the end after all of these
Right.
warnings, like there will be the most dire consequences to you and your family if you don't, drop your inquiries, and he just has to keep going. It's like the whole movie is him ignoring Christmas. Like the whole
Yeah.
thing is that like
All
he's
the
got
way to
his
the very
daughter,
last
and dude,
scene.
you're supposed to like you have no Christmas spirit at all, and these are the consequences, bro. You forgot you're not looking at what's important. You've got so caught up with your ego and all this shit. So it's basically a Christmas Carol, but he doesn't get the hint at any point. And then the whole argument is at the ending he's gonna get the hint when he loses
Yeah,
his daughter.
because
That was
the
the
two
most
guys,
important thing to him that he was ignoring.
the two guys, the old men at the beginning of the movie who are at the party that he's at where he has to take care of the woman who's overdosing. Those two old men are in the toy shop as his daughter turns. They're like, "That's nice, dear," because she's looking at a toy. Then they continue talking, and you never see his daughter again. And so it seems pretty plausible that that's the conclusion, is that the really like this giant piece is a human trafficking scenario where this guy took a taxi to a party he shouldn't have. He wouldn't stop bothering them about it, and so finally they just take his kid.
Right.
What-
And then
what was
Gremlins
the
2,
third movie?
Gremlins, the original Gremlins is like the same premise as Eyes Wide Shut. Because and like even having like the witch, like that lady like who played the witch, the what's her name? Miss um you know, yeah,
Put me on the spot. The one that's mean to the dog.
yeah, I'm gonna put him in my spin cycle on high heat. That'll do it all right. Like she specified that when she flies out the window and she lands in the snow, that actress was like, my feet have to stick up. So I'm like reminiscent of the witch getting crushed by the house. That's like the sister of the Wicked Witch. That she's like, it has to be that way. And she like had a dispute while they were filming that she's like, this is what it should be. And they're like, okay, fine. And they did it. So like that was her wish, her wanting to embed it to take it that much further. But there's this whole thing where it's like this is why what's her name? What's the
Phoebe Cates?
Yeah, that she's like, that her dad died in the chimney, and she tells this whole horrific story. In Gremlins 2, it's Lincoln's day, so it's like, oh, don't bring up Lincoln. I was like, one time when I was a kid and I had this packed lunch, and there was this guy wearing a Lincoln hat. He looked just like Lincoln, and they're like, just stop, don't, but the premise is like the Christmas spirit is just lacking, and then they all have to suffer the consequences. So it's like the same lesson as a Christmas Carol once again, but
it's rich that Andreas before is like, oh, you're trying to bring Catholicism into it. It's literally a Christmas movie about what happens if you let demons take over the role of Christ.
Totally, it's true,
right?
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, but like, it's not. I don't know if it's so specific, because the demons are supposed to do a lot of the work for your God. That's the thing. Like,
you could make the argument that it's communism too, or the virus came from China. It's like, because it is like a virus. It takes over, and it's like, it's also like it's meant to be like a reflection of us and our own tendencies,
But it's
towards
also like
chaos.
it's more like it's like the second movie makes it clear that it's this like viral ideology that's spreading too. Like the fact that we're such a liberal society, we're going to let these migrants take over. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's so obvious that there will not be a real war against these gremlins. The people will just subsidize them and give them. They're like, we're going to need library cards, IDs, places to stay, money. It's like it's really crazy how detailed it is about that. So I feel like the gremlins, you know, it's saying they're going to take over the society because we're going to let them take over the society because they're integrating. And the transgender one, like because most of the other ones are fried by the electrical gremlin. The final scene with the guy covered in kisses all over his face with the transgender gremlin who's been saying, why can't you commit? And then they like lock the door. It seems like they're saying at very least the next integration is this transgender woke ideology with this guy. You know, they're going to build this in this corporatist tower.
Kind of the most terrifying possibility is that they're just going to run with it. That is just this is going to be a story about the one surviving gremlin who's like the trans gremlin. I
feel like that's the best continuity is just to continue with that, right? With
somebody corrected us the last time that we had a long conversation about Gremlins 2, where they were saying that I don't remember exactly. I think they really did have a point. I have to look again, but about the electric gremlin. Because that electric gremlin, like those two things speak so much to today that you would have the transgender gremlin and you'd have the electronic gremlin, because that could just be the gremlins are loose on the internet. So there's so much fodder there.
Think all gremlins represent being loose on the internet and machinery in general and infrastructure, because the original premise, like you guys were mentioning, is that gremlins were supposed to be the thing that you blame on your engine troubles or like mechanical failures.
Right, but so that's the thing, is that in both cases they become a scapegoat that we're like, it's symbolically at least, that we would blame our mechanical errors or failures on the gremlin. And then in gremlins, these are all human tendencies. So it's like latent tendencies, like samskaras, like that's kind of what the gremlins are. Like they're like our worst traits in full force. So it's like, just, you know, we're just having a good time, right? They're like extreme consumerism, which is how it relates to Christmas. Why it's a Christmas movie. It's just like, it's basically Krampus. I would argue that Eyes Wide Shut is Krampus also, except like Bill is like a man boy who has to now suffer the consequences of his lack of Christmas spirit, you know? Just saying. I guess I'm just repeating myself, but it feels like
so many things you can do with the gremlins, man. You could have like an island like Jurassic Park, like you could have the gremlin park and they can't escape because of the water. Like you gremlins in space, cyber gremlins.
How could they escape because of the water? They could not escape if there was bright light surrounding the whole thing. But
yeah, if you threw a gremlin in the ocean, would it just keep multiplying until
so then you got like Prometheus gremlin, where a single gremlin falls from space and it lands in the water and just, you know, the entire planet just turns into gremlins. Populated.
Do the gremlins get like increasingly bad, or are they just like it's the next generation that's bad? Like
that's what I was getting at before. It's not like there's no formula that says that the first generation is good and then the second generation is a little bit worse and the third generation, like a gremlin of a gremlin of a gremlin. It's almost implied, but it's not clear to me.
No, it's made clear in Gremlins 2 that yes, one of the reasons why it gets progressively worse every time there's more gremlins is that they remember everything from before, and so they can navigate and be like, I'm not going to make that same mistake again.
Right, no, but that just means that they're smarter and they can have more strategy.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Russian doll evolution of gremlins. Like, does the third incarnation of gremlins get worse? And they did seem like it, because in Gremlins 2, the worst gremlins then get water put on them and they produce more gremlins, and those gremlins seemed, I think, to be more vicious than the last generation. So it's sort of presumed that they're getting worse and worse.
They also, on a practical point, they clearly spent more money. I say clearly, but what do I know? But it looks like they spent more money on the Mogwais and the Gremlins and Gremlins 2, yet they all look way more fake than they did.
The mechanical quality of the moving parts to make them more expensive, to make them more animatronic, I think they probably cost more, but they didn't look as real in my opinion. But, you know, it did make them more like Furbies. Furby all of a sudden connected to Gremlin in that way, and you can see that as like the cybernetic Gremlins taking
You've
over.
seen the Mitchells versus the Machines
Yeah.
Furby scene in the mall.
Great, that's a Disney movie.
Nice.
Is it?
I think
I
so.
thought,
Mitchell
no,
versus
that's
Machine.
that's a
I thought it was
that's
DreamWorks.
Columbia.
What am I thinking of?
No, that's a Columbia movie.
But yeah, I mean, so if cybernetic gremlins are making animatronic robots to take over their bodies, like again, like that's like an expanded Terminator property that they can do with gremlins. It's crazy.
There
so
you go.
saying
And
the
it's
last
the two twins from Terminator 2 in the nut house that are the guys
scientists
working in
in
the
Gremlins
bio
2.
lab.
The Twin
So,
Towers
yeah.
scientists in Gremlins 2 are the prison guards from Terminator 2. He's right.
So Gremlins 2 feels like it predicts both 9/11 and COVID-19 in so many ways. Because it's all this like reckless experimentation, like they're basically doing gain of Fauci research there at the bio lab, and then they're like,
Trump
"Oh
Tower.
shit, God, escaped! It escaped!" Somebody, because Billy takes the gremlin, brings it out, like, and they're like, you know, he's basically stolen the virus, and that guy Christopher Lee, even though
Right, Christopher Lee's in this,
and
which is like
Christopher Lee is just like all he's into is diseases. He's like, I wanted these diseases. Like he's like this crazy Fauci character who just wants to work with diseases. And then it's like, oh shit, look, what did you think was going to happen? You're running around in ski masks? Yeah.
It is though. Like basically Christopher Lee plays Fauci. And there's no reason for it. Like why Christopher Lee? Such a, you know, of all people, this like thespian, serious Shakespearean actor is in Gremlins 2 playing this Fauci character. What's the deal? You know, it's pretty good.
Wasn't he in a lot of Hammer movies too, though?
Okay, but you know,
he's in
Christopher Lee chose what he Christopher Lee chose what he did.
Christopher Lee took no money for The Wicker Man because he didn't want to take from the budget to take away from what the movie could be, that he felt so strongly about how important this movie was that he's like, I don't need to get paid. Who does
you know that no one's seen the original like version of Wicker Man? There's like 30 minutes of deleted scenes. You know,
no one's seen it. I have it on my computer. What are you talking about?
You have the version with the part for the, you know, in England where he's running all the stuff where he's running around in England, all that.
Running around? You mean when he's in the church in England and stuff?
No, there's like a girl. There's a whole sequence where he like finds a girl missing in England first, and it develops his character.
Oh, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do know that there is a significantly extended director's cut, which I have.
Yeah, but the director's cut doesn't have the original missing. There's also missing sequence the director doesn't have too. Apparently, like
there's also the Wicker Tree, which people didn't like. I think it's great with Nick Cave's skeleton tree.
Christopher Lee talked about how he's like he thinks it was deliberately destroyed, the original cut of Wicker Man. Like he has a whole thing about it, but yeah.
Well, like they were revealing too much of the truth,
or something. I don't know. He was pissed. He was like, I can't believe they deliberately removed. Like they said that it was lost in a fire or something like that, and he said he thought it was deliberately done. You know,
probably true. It probably has something to do with Secrets of the Golden Bough, considering that's what that movie's about.
There's a really interesting interview with Christopher Lee. I can't remember the source of it, but they're asking him essentially, I'll paraphrase it, like, do you believe in dark magic or dark forces? Since he'd been involved in Wicker Man and all these like Hammer films and stuff, and he was giving a very frank answer, like, yeah, absolutely, like the certain feel that it actually evokes, like that there's like a real energy and it's not just all fictional. That was kind of like the impression I was getting.
Interesting.
And I guess he would be taken as like an expert because of the amount of, I guess, like dark themes that he's been asked to play in all these different movies.
True, yeah.
Yeah, I got a crazy Christopher Lee sync with this movie. I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's almost like an Ed Wood movie from like the 70s, or maybe even so there's only one movie that was released the day and year of David Bowie's Heroes, and it's about alien abduction, and it has Christopher Lee, and it's a really good sync, especially because if you know that album Heroes, there's like instrumental sections that go on and on and on, and like they work really well. It's like they feel like they're made to be a cinematic soundtrack, like they're not pop songs, they're just like this kind of orchestrated, like over the top, you know, like cinematic thing. And I don't know, it's pretty crazy, but yeah.
So let me. What was the third movie? Because when Nicole joined, Anna Nicole Wordsmith joined, you were like, "Have you seen those two movies?" One of them was Gremlins 2. What was the other one that we were talking about? Multiplicity. Michael Keaton. That's right. So
Yeah.
So go on. You explain why someone should have to watch Multiplicity is required watching.
Well, have you seen Multiplicity? I mean,
I have. Yeah, no, I have.
Yeah, like it's clearly like a Kabbalistic working of the different aspects of himself, and he breaks himself up, shatters himself into a team so they can work together to emphasize and focus on the parts of himself that need to grow better as a person, so that he can he can fully integrate himself and become himself, right? So Multiplicity is a sci-fi movie only on this very thin level, because it's not really about how they're doing this cloning technology or anything like that.
What's the mechanism when he makes new versions of himself? What is he doing?
It's just a while since I've seen it. Actually, I don't think I've seen it in like
a
million years. Isn't it like they copy? How do you do it, David? Do you remember? There's like a machine. Do you remember how they do
it? Exactly how they did it. Yeah, it basically has a cloning machine or something. Yeah, I'm just visualizing the different characters is basically what I got, and that each one was a copy of a copy, and he realizes that every time I make a new one, it's further removed in a more distorted way from what I actually am.
Yeah. So. The technology, that's my point, is it's so little to do with the point of the story. It's like not really about cloning. It's like more about that he's broken himself up into attributes of himself. So now he has a quantum psychology and he can emphasize each thing, right? So
remember in Fight Club when he says everything's a copy of a copy, and it's when he says that they give you, I think, the first flash of Tyler. So Tyler Durden shows up right when he says everything's a copy of a copy, and then you're like, so is Tyler a copy of you? Like, he's not a copy of you, but Multiplicity is not a real copy, right? Like, if it was a real copy, then it would just be more of himself as he is. But no, it has to be this other weird version, which could speak to the idea that the Klippo take away more than they give. So you make a deal in a sense, and then you're always going to lose. It's like the house always wins. It's like a casino is very like the epitome of the way the Klippo or demons are described in Kabbalah, is that you have you think you're gaining something, and you will gain something, but that gain is actually counterbalanced by more of a loss on a more fundamental level. So like your life force, it's like, okay, well, I got all these riches, but now my life force is all dwindled, and what do I got? Kind of like that. But, yeah.
Someone says, I cloned pot for years. Clones of clones suck. Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of the movie, but it's also they're like a clone of a person's already. Like, even though they're
clone the females, they kill the men.
They're not quite.
You see that so explicitly. Not quite.
I don't know if they're quite explicitly saying they're soulless, but it does kind of feel like they're homunculus in the sense they're not fully like him, right? And you get a person that's very emotionally compassionate, that's a good listener. You get a guy who's very tough and aggressive and masculine and attractive in that way. And I forget there's got to be another one, but then there's the retarded one. There's one who puts a piece of pizza in his wallet for later.
Whoa.
Yeah.
As you're describing it, I'm just thinking of the movie Bedazzled with like that, which is essentially the same.
With Dudley Moore and Raquel Welch, or the remake?
No. But
Brendan
Fraser.
With Brendan Fraser and
that one. Watch the Dudley Moore one, dude. It's 50 times better.
Bedazzled with Brendan Fraser, where he sells his soul and he doesn't get what he wants. Is that the right one?
Right, but it's the same premise where he's trying to get some girl to fall in love with him, and every time he makes a wish, it's like a slight tweak in order to get that. So he gets the over romantic one, but he's so romantic that they're watching a sunset and he starts crying, and she gets the ick. She's like, ugh, this guy cries too much. And he realizes that every little tweak he makes, it's putting him farther and farther. He's never gonna get there with all the different wishes, which is kind of like a monkey's paw situation, but I think it's less the devil that's doing that. It's more him that's doesn't know how to make a wish.
Yeah, that's like Be Yourself movie, and I think it's maybe the opposite of that, because Multiplicity is about the integration of those things. As he's able to see these separated versions of himself and they can explore, then he can integrate them back into himself better, and he becomes a more emotional person because he sees himself as an emotional person. He's a more aggressive or a masculine person because he sees himself as that. And then he gets in touch with his id or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure what the
Do
copy
they
of a
merge at
copy
the end? Does he
teaches them.
merge his multiplicitous versions of himself back
So
into him?
what happens is he sets them. I literally haven't seen this movie since I was 10, but I think he sets them free, and they go off and live their dream, and then he
Okay.
gets his wife and family back or something like that. Is that how that works? I feel bad that it's been so long.
Is this a country song in reverse? What's happening?
Yeah, exactly. It's something like that.
Well, just imagine because if they were
I'll
true
watch it tonight.
homunculi,
I'm sorry.
you'd have to kill them at the end of it. Like the only way that you can in order to prevent a homunculus from turning into a monster, you have to destroy it before it gets too far developed. But also by killing a homunculus, that's when you get like the special power, ability, insight, magic. Like it comes
Right.
from the act of destroying the thing.
But remember what Kubrick said about the homunculus, right? So Kubrick emphasized the distinction between the homunculus and AI because he argued directly in the screenplay treatments for AI that the guy was conflating the two. And so Kubrick had to say, no, in the notes, he was like, no, these are two different things. Why? Because the homunculus is made through an organic process. So we're basically co-creators with Tetragrammaton, whereas the AI is mecha. So that would still be Orga. So like in the context of the way the film presents is you have Orga and you have Mecha, there's two orders to the Sephiroth. So Kubrick was saying like how this homunculus worked with the Amet turning to Met. So truth becomes death when you erase the Aleph, like all of that. Like this is still working within the realm of that order of the Sephiroth. I mean, this belongs to something else, and the manipulation of it gets, like we believe that that the mimic is the thing itself.
I just wonder what Kubrick would say about Doom playing on brain neurons that have been wired to a circuit board, right? Because now we have mecha cybernetics, and they're literally using brain. I think it's from rats, or is it even human brain cells?
Well, you say now, but this is literally from the 90s. They were doing this. They were having rat neurons fly jet planes.
Yeah. So this idea that we're completely bio or completely mecha, I think, really misses maybe the point to some extent.
It's the first line of Genesis. So God is on the surface of the deep. There's 4 different klipot that are mentioned in that first verse of Genesis, of the first 42 letters of Genesis. So first 42 letters of Genesis lead to the first letter of the first klipot. So they have the 42 letter name of God is derived from those 42 letters, but it's the surface of the deep. It's chaos, it's void, it's formless. So it's without form. So what is it describing? Because the idea, like it relates to Patanjali, because in Patanjali you have 2 eternal principles. So you have Purush and you have Prakriti. What is the surface of the deep? Because that was there, according to the Torah, at the beginning of time, along with God. So what is this other thing? So you can make the argument that that this is kind of like a, it doesn't have an organizing principle. It's chaos. It's without form. When you introduce the organizing principle, which is God, it reforms that surface to, so we have something to relate to. Like, so it's kind of a weird one because like, what would gremlins be? What would demons be? But perhaps, that other order that has its own chaotic way of being. And so it like comes up against actual order, which we see in nature. So it's like anti-nature.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Is it's not that they're necessarily like working for evil, but they don't have the same like enslavement to good or enslavement to God. That's I think and that's what the Quran talks about with demons as well.
That's Thomas the Tank Engine, because Thomas is on tracks, right? Like he has a directive.
Where is it? I needed to get. Choo choo! Sink tank! For some reason, it mutes you guys. I had to unmute myself. We're gonna have to work on that.
Okay, so when you asked Nicole you asked her 3 questions actually, and Nicole, you said, no to the first question, yes to the second, but there was actually but he asked if you had seen 2 films. Have you seen Gremlins 2? Have you seen Multiplicity? And there was a third question, I forget what it was, but what have you seen these films that were?
She said she saw Multiplicity.
No, I haven't seen any of them.
Did you see Multiplicity?
Based
she
on
was
what
responding yes to the second part.
Based on what you said, it sounded like probably, even though I hadn't seen it, it sounded legit. So I was just guessing.
Well, actually, you know what, Thomas, can you pull up her page? Let's look at some of Anna Nicole Wordsmith's work this week.
Okay, you got to give me.
Now that we talked for an hour about Gremlins and Multiplicity, I think it's
No.
Have you seen this movie? No. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Yeah.
Talk about what?
I was just making fun of ourselves. It's like we're going to talk about Multiplicity and Gremlins, movies you haven't seen, but you should see them. I think that was the lesson.
I want to. I have like massive FOMO about.
See, there you go. Then it worked. I hope everyone feels the same way.
Okay,
You're
so
I
saw the Odyssey this week, and I enjoyed it. But something I noticed, and I didn't remember this in the book, so I don't know that it was.
This
in the
is
book,
so good. I can't believe we don't think about this. It's the years we could have been thinking about this, and you caught it. Thank you.
What?
Fire and Ice.
Oh,
You're fired, Trump. It's like what? Obviously. Oh my God! But I never would have thought it. It's crazy. It's good sync.
yeah, because when Circe is giving Odysseus the directions to Hades, she's like, "You're gonna find it when a river of fire meets a river of ice." And there's just been it's not just been Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump's been the most obvious in the Matrix, but there's been little ones that have been happening here and there. Remember when Ice Cube's bus got firebombed last year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. There's just been I think there was some. I've been tracking them. You know how my mind goes. So
yeah, Ice Cube's bus being firebombed.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fire and ice, alchemy stuff that's been kind of relayed symbolically in layers in the Matrix for a while.
I was really disappointed. I was disappointed with the Masters of the Universe movie, the new one. I felt like it had all this potential, and the potential that I saw was that the basis of He-Man, the toy line and the comic and everything, was to basically bring Frank Frazetta's artwork to life. And so when I'm watching this movie, it feels like such a missed opportunity, and I feel like that could be kind of mended with them just making a remake of Fire and Ice and just going all out on the Frazetta visuals and the Frazetta women and the fucking Herculean men. Conan, it just could be so good. And they just I want to be in a Frank Frazetta painting or a series of Frank Frazetta paintings and be in that world. And I feel like they're just missing the mark repeatedly with these opportunities. The original Fire and Ice was good for the time in which it came out, but holy cow, what they could do with that now, to create a Frank Frazetta world, I'm just what are you doing?
There's a cartoon I'll find you. Actually, I've seen in that style now that they're using Unreal Engine to make. That's pretty Frank Frazetta. But I mean, the Fire and Ice thing is interesting because Trump's apprentice is the sorcerer's apprentice, and fire and ice are key ingredients in a lot of alchemical rituals. So it's, he's using the terms from the alchemical rituals, but to represent actions that he's taking, which are, related. You're fired and you're now getting iced. These are things which are removing and purifying the cauldron or his melting pot, right, which is a cauldron. And it's cool. I didn't get that before. Fired.
The intersection of Prush and Prakriti is communicated as fire and water, right? So I mean, it makes sense. We're talking about the elements over here, but yeah, it's just as basic as you can get, pretty much. But yeah.
Vagina.
I hold my hands that way. I was thinking it yesterday. I was at my cousin's wedding reception, and I was standing there for photos, and I realized I was holding my hands in this position, which is just so calm. Yeah, I didn't do it upwards. I didn't do that, But yeah, I don't know. What do you feel? You feel? I can see Mary at the center of this. So you feel like this is where you from? Your mama's place? Is that what's
some
happening?
sort of Matrix, because Matrix means womb. Mm-hmm. And I feel like so many of these people on the stage are doing these hers to me is not an unconscious thing that on some level, like that to me isn't like, I've seen people like sit with their hands like that or whatever, just like normal people. But I feel like when she's up there on the world stage like that, like I think that middle one is where she's getting inaugurated. Like people don't just like constantly hold their hands like that.
Well, this means water. So like that symbol, if you're facing it downward, it's water. If you face it upward, it's fire, right? In the alchemical sense. So
someone also pointed out that it's an upside down pyramid, which like really kind of fits with like our society and how it's set up and how like the
put it back. I tried clicking on it. My bad.
Oh,
what? Okay. Huh? Oh, you're trying to enlarge it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I tried to enlarge it, but I can't. Thomas has to. Sorry.
What do I do to you mean like
Mary,
that?
Mary means the sea, right? I mean, that's like maritime. That's the etymology. Like rosemary means dew of the sea, which I think is interesting in terms of Mia Farrow in The Last Unicorn, where the unicorns are literally the dew of the sea, and that's what Mary means, and she's rosemary, you know. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, when you were putting this together, were you thinking, hey, this is water, you know, like?
I wasn't thinking it's not. Well, so that's a quote from my previous one where I had, so if you click on, Thomas, if you click on the one that's a quote to, are you able to do that? Yeah, that one. So like Morpheus in the first scene when Neo enters the Matrix, that's the same hand sign that Morpheus is making. And so like all these kind of Matrix agents guys, like Andrew Tate, I have a post on him and all of the like hand signals he does, but he made his money on vagina. Like that's how he got rich, right? Like he does like reality show stuff or whatnot and bro stuff, but like all his money was made on like webcam girls.
True.
And so I don't know, like to me it's like some sort of homage to the Great Mother. Like there's the depictions of Mother Mary are always vaginal. Maybe not always, but like she kind of subconsciously looks like.
Oh, there's no question that the way that Mother Mary is traditionally represented through the iconic, you know, the art where she has like the veil on her head, you can clearly see that you're looking at the hood and that the it's like
the labia.
yeah.
And then so the middle one in that picture, that's the first woman who took the COVID vaccine, and it was on like the Ascension of Mary Day that it happened. And like when she came out with her, yeah, it's hard to blow it up. When she came out with her COVID shot, she did the.
If you right click it, open it as an image in a new tab. There you go. He did it. All right.
Yeah, but then how do I? There we go.
Yeah, she came out of there doing the thing, and then I don't know. It's just like too much. Like every time Elon and Trump are on stage, they're doing the hand sign. Like there's like a game that's being conveyed to us, and it's like Andrea said. Is like, pay attention, look, don't just, there's like words that are being spoken, but there's other messages that are being conveyed symbolically.
Exactly. Yeah. When we were watching Gremlins 2 last night, Andreas made the comment when somebody opens up a door of a van and all of these mimes, like there's police, they're like in a police van, and then all the mimes are getting out and they're miming as they're getting out of the van. And Andreas made the point that he's like, look, they're communicating without speech.
Yeah.
So like telling you, like, pay attention, something's being communicated here.
And that they're being arrested. The fact that these are in a police van, they're like, we can't speak because we're under arrest.
Right.
But we're mimes.
Right. Which I pointed out to him is like the end of Blow Up. I don't know if you know the trilogy. I forget the director's name, but he did Blow Up, and then he did The Passenger with Jack Nicholson. And then, and then he did Zabriskie Point, which is the third, and then they blow up the house at the end with Pink Floyd's "Careful with That Axe, Eugene" playing. But at the end of Blow Up, they use mimes to communicate that point. I'm not the only person who has interpreted the end of Blow Up as exactly what Andreas was pointing out. That it's like, how do you communicate something without just saying it? And like the mime becomes like a symbol of that. But like all through Gremlins 2, it feels like they're like shouting things at you without ever saying it directly. Like they're showing it to you directly, you know? So it's also like, how many movies like break the fourth wall as much as Gremlins 2? My God, they're like reviewing Gremlins 1 in Gremlins 2, and then the
with
Gremlins
Leonard
like,
Maltin.
wrapping-
Yeah, the actual Leonard Maltin is reviewing it, and then he gets attacked by gremlins. It's so much. It's just over the top. Yeah,
And then
just
the
keep going
Hulk
back to gremlins.
shows up and is like, he tells the Gremlins to play the second reel, like in the middle of the movie, like they stop the movie because the Gremlins stop the movie, and then Hulk is in the theater, and he's just like, "You turn that movie back on," you know, and they're like, "Okay." It's crazy. What are you going into the lore? What's happening?
I'm just looking at all of the new batch. These are all the different Gremlins from Gremlins 2.
Oh, and have you seen? There's a cartoon now for kids, Mogwai. It's actually like an animated cartoon that's joint between America and China, and people are watching it. All kids are watching Mogwai cartoons with no context because they've never seen Gremlins, but they've seen this new Mogwai cartoon. They don't know what happens to them. They haven't seen, you know.
Who's your favorite non-spike Gremlin, and why is it Flasher?
Is Flasher the one that uses glasses?
No, Flasher's the one that well, yeah, he's got glasses on, but literally the one that he just goes around in a trench coat.
Oh
and
yeah,
flashes you.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I
he's
don't
in
hate
both.
him, but my favorite's still the brilliant one, right? Because he can speak.
My
obviously.
favorite is definitely the crazy-eyed one, especially when it's a Mogwai.
George, right? Is George the smart one? No.
No, George is like a gangster. He's supposed to look like Al Capone or something. But no, I like the one that's just totally
Brain
nuts. It's all,
Yeah, Brain Gremlin is. Yeah, well, that one's the scariest one. David's like crazy. Crazy's always scarier than mean, you know, because it's unpredictable.
I think
Crazy
he's the
Gremlin.
scariest gremlin. I think
He
he's
is.
scarier than the damn spider or the bat
Totally.
or any of the gremlins. Yeah, it's
But
just
Brain
like,
Gremlin is
like,
really cool. Like, and he's just and then there's I mean, obviously, Tran Gremlin is pretty important. Like, I would need this action figure probably. I think it's in
I
time.
have
to
it.
find.
I have it. You want it? I have it in the loft. I think I'll grab it for you.
Oh my god, you get a trans one? Jeez. Well, okay. So what I was thinking of is like when I was a kid, there was this Christmas story about a wandering Jew. It's like a
Oh, is he frozen for everyone else too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't hear me? What
Wait.
happened?
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay, it's okay. Continue. You got a wandering Jew story for us?
There's a
Yeah.
wandering Jew, and he deals with a bunch of shadim or whatever, shadim, whatever the like these like corporeal Jewish Talmudic demons, like goblins and things. Like, and he's in this building, like it's like an empty mansion, but there's one where the fat demon's got his hand stuck in a pickle jar. And so then he's like, I'll let you go, if you help me escape. Or the Jew convinces him, like, if I let you escape from this, you have to promise not to kill me. He's like, well, you have to let go of the pickle, right? Because you're holding on to the pickle is the reason you have to stop being so greedy. And all of these little stories around Hanukkah about how this wandering Jew survives in this haunted mansion by like helping these Talmudic demons. And that to me related somehow, I think, to the gremlins, like the way they act as character demons. Like they're not necessarily like super evil per se. Yeah, that's it. That's Herschel and the Hanukkah goblins. Right. Yeah, go had to read this from Scholastic magazine. They put us in all of our schools.
Theodore Herschel? Is that what is, or is this it's not based on a real person, is it?
It probably is. This probably happens to a lot of Jews.
Then he was secular though, so I don't know if it works, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you're secular, you still have to deal with goblins every once in a while. I think is the point.
That's interesting. Hanukkah goblins. That sounds like something. Yeah.
It's a good book.
Look out. Yeah.
But I mean, like they deal with precise rules and everything. That's another very Jewish thing about this. Like you have to follow these rules so strictly that seems so silly. Like don't eat right after midnight. Why at 12:01 is it such a big deal? But
that's the real test is that they don't seem like, because when that's in Gremlins 2, they're all making fun of it. They're like, well, what if he gets something stuck in his teeth or something, and then he comes out, he didn't technically eat after. He's like, look, I don't know, man. I'm just telling you, like, these are the rules. You do your best to follow them. Like, Jesus Christ.
It's a legitimate question. These are the kind of questions I'd be wondering about.
Well, I mean, it's just like, again, these are not evil creatures. These are crazy creatures. They're like unstable, not like necessarily completely, concerted efforts to like take over the world evil. That's kind of like the one that's like that's Brain, and he's the most passive. He's going to take over the world passively. The other ones are just kind of crazy. So that's in a sense, I think, the scariest one. But also that kind of liminal range of after midnight when like the book comes. You know, I think that's when I think of Spielberg, I can't escape that everything he does has a very esoteric kind of spiritual level to it, and a very
All right.
Does Midnight Mass start exactly at midnight, or does it start at 12:01?
I don't know. Is there a warm up there? It depends on how late it takes. Gnostics are always in traffic. That's the problem. So
I have a criticism of Andreas's analysis.
Please.
I feel like you're a little too quick to embrace the propaganda of the gremlin who drank the brain juice.
I am.
Because he's giving an argument for what they are, whatever. He shoots the other gremlin in the head and he's like, see, not civilized.
Right.
Like he's like civilized. So it's like, but there's all this contradiction. So I don't trust that. I feel like that's a narcissist gremlin that's like he's so intelligent, but he's also like the best manipulator.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
I think we agree.
Civilization.
We agree with
civilization. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm saying that that's actually pretty scary because like he's the first gremlin that might actually take over the world.
Sure.
Yeah, but he's also chill.
Plot hole. There's a plot hole because when they give the bat gremlin the like sunblock, the like genetic sunblock stuff, so he can fly out in the sunshine and not be burnt up or whatever, like that when he gets the shot, it's a big container. So he just like takes one syringe full out of this container, and you're like, dude, why aren't they just injecting all the gremlins with this sunblock? Like, it just seems like the obvious thing to do, but I don't know.
They missed out. They should have had a pangolin gremlin and it would have been like full circle.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that the gremlins are related to a disease in Gremlins 2 in the biolab, I'm sorry, I already said that, but it trips me out. I'm just saying, like, and Trump's involvement, that Trump is like, or excuse me, Clamp, that he's just like at the top of the building, doesn't even know, like, things are going down in his building and he's like aware of it like late. The last person to actually be aware of it is that redhead boss of Billy's. Like, she comes out of her room, it's like 3/4 into the movie and she's like, wait, what's going on? Like, why don't I get my, like, I don't know.
Yeah, narcissists are the last to know what's happening to everything and everyone around them.
Don't forget the leather daddy gremlin.
True.
Oh, who could forget?
All these action figures are so peak. It's just really good stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you don't disagree then that like gremlins are kind of a Kabbalistic demonology metaphor. You agreed with that, or you disagree?
Who are you talking to?
You, David, because it sounded like you said you were going to disagree with that, but no.
No. I just think that you're quick to embrace the brain gremlins propaganda, because I trust that gremlin about as far as I can throw him.
Well, sure, but I think most people,
it's like he sounds rational, but he's also like
defending. No, he's like Omar. What's the lady from Minnesota? Omar, whatever. Sharif, correct? Okay. What?
Ilhan Omar? Are we bringing what?
Ilhan Omar. Yeah, Ilhan Omar. It's like that, or it's like the mayor of London, or it's like he's representing a migrant population, and so he's the one that can speak on their behalf, and so he's the one making it possible for all these wild orcs.
All right, well, let's point out the obvious, that when Ilhan Omar had water thrown at her by that water assassin, he was just testing to see if she would multiply.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, and is Ilhan Omar going to multiply when I throw water on her?
It clearly worked, because there are more Somalis now than there were then. It just keeps happening.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. She seems I don't. She's one of those politicians that I don't understand how they're like being held to account, like with what she did with her finances and all this stuff, where she's just like said she had millions, then it went to like hardly, like, what are you, what like, I don't know.
I think it's a signal.
Brother, or was that a rumor?
Fake winery. Which part?
That she married her brother to like get
that is unsubstantiated ultimately, as far as I know, because I think the documentation of that would be needed to prove, and so there's been many demands, requests, whatever, for her citizenship documentation with her brother, but I don't know. That to me feels like the lesser, that like the obvious one is a fake winery. The obvious one, like she's got like a medical place that doesn't do anything medical, that's getting all this money for being a medical facility. Like there's just like a list of things where it's like, wow, you are totally scamming the system here, and like
Civilized,
what I would imagine are illegal
uncivilized.
ways.
I
What
think
do you-
that's the role.
Do you think there's a connection between like the Somali pirates and the Somali like
Of course.
things going on here?
Absolutely. Right? Like, doesn't there have to be? It seems like that's why they were given this chunk of Minnesota. They just were like, hey, here's a chunk of land that's really awesome that we're not using, and we don't really care about the people there. You know, why don't we like just just take it from them, because we don't care, and they're gonna die out anyway. We'll put fentanyl and meth in their area.
Yeah,
And-
well, by their merit, I just feel like we do ourselves a disservice when we focus on like people are doing fraud. You got to hold the fraud accountable. I mean, maybe I'm naive or something, but I just feel like even just I don't know, state facts. You know, they don't care about your feelings or whatever. But like, I don't know, man. I guess our boy Nick Shirley, he always puts that point forward when people are like, "Oh, this is racist" or whatever. He's like, "Fraud is fraud. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, if they happen to be Somali, then okay."
Well, yeah,
know,
I mean,
but-
it's not really about that, but it's like the Somali pirate connection is interesting because, you know, of course, the Strait, and we've got this like oil trade happening, and having control of that region, making deals with pirates is better than it's cheaper than having to colonize or take over that region. Essentially, like, okay, well, pirates are there, and I mean, if you look at the Somali pirates' weaponry and everything they have, I mean, they have state of the art GPS guidance, satellite, submarines, like torpedoes. They have a lot of really interesting technology that you should only really have if you're associated with the U.S. Navy, right?
Mm.
So I think that it makes a lot of sense that the pirates are being supplied by the United States military, and it would make a perfect retirement gift that some of your family don't have to live in Somalia anymore. Like, you get to get out, right?
Have you seen Captain
But
Ron?
of course, the fraud is inherently linked to being Somali. It's not that being Somalian makes
No,
you.
it's linked to the deep
fraud.
state using pirates so they can get oil places and bribing people, like bribing pirates. Sure, they happen to be from Somalia, but trust me, the CIA bribes pirates all over the world, and they don't care what color they are. They're actually really indiscriminate.
Yeah,
or
but
rather,
we're talking about Ilhan Omar and Minnesota. Then we're not really talking about Pirates International. I think part of it is showing like, look at what you can accomplish when you have a community that actually bands together. You can actually supersede any sort of laws, because there's not enough law enforcement to actually enforce the laws, so that if everyone bands together, and I think that's the part of like the melting pot aspect, is that no one really bands together the same way, because everyone's got their own little like delineations. But like,
Minnesota is a unique case because it's not that unique, but like in terms of white guilt, you know, you have a lot of Germans there. So you have a lot of like white guilt and this association with, you know, I don't want to be racist like my grandparents kind of thing. So a lot of them are willing to become leftist when they get to university, especially leaving rural areas. You're like, wow, I'm in a city now. I'm in Twin, I'm in St. Paul. I'm a serious person now. And so they end up becoming more and more a part and a parcel of the woke agenda in Minnesota. And a lot of decent people, I'm not even talking about blue-haired people from the last 20 years, like the last 50, 60 years, you've got more and more opportunity for people to say, let's be compassionate to immigrants. Let's have, you know, and then it's constantly exploited. The CIA brought the Hmong in after they destroyed the Hmong, right? Like there's Cambodia and there's China and there's a war going on, and the United States goes in there and they supply an indigenous population with weapons, and they end up losing. The United States ends up making a deal with the enemy, with the communist Chinese, and then the communist Chinese hunt down and try to exterminate this indigenous population of Hmong people. So the CIA brings a bunch of them back to the United States and puts them in California and in Minnesota. And then rather than give them what they wanted originally, they did this deal with the United States because they wanted farmland. Well, they put them in apartment buildings, gave them like a year to find a job, and then force them to radically assimilate from basically living like Ewoks, right? Because Ewoks are based on the Hmong, like for real. That's the language is even just recordings of Hmong people scrambled, and then
the language is
assimilated.
multiple things all at once, including reverse speech and a
But what they did
mentally
for
handicapped raccoon that they would dangle goldfish in front of, and it would make some crazy noises, which they recorded. And
they also used bears for Chewbacca, but specifically for making the Ewok language, they had an old lady who was a Hmong lady, and they recorded her telling stories, you know, and that way she would throw different voices and characters and things like that, which was a major part of creating the Ewoks. Anyway, point being, they were forced to assimilate to becoming Americans within like a month. They had like a year to like start living in America, and then they had to get a job and like assimilate. And so this happened in Minnesota, and they've, you know, the Hmong are cool actually, but there's been a number of examples of this where they're just hoisted on the population locally, and the local population's they're trying to be okay with it. Like they're new people, they're open-minded. It's surprisingly open-minded people in Minnesota, but then they get exploited because there's huge corruption. Minnesota's always been a corrupt place. There's mafia. There's the prohibition was always a big mob scene there, and the police are corrupt. And like the George Floyd riots are less about racism and more about police corruption, right? There's a lot of issues like that in Minnesota that doesn't have anything to do with whether you're Hmong or white or Somali. There's just an elite that's kind of controlling from the cities because they're able to say, well, the rural population is so displaced and we have such a dense population in the city, countless in fact, because we can't be sure how many people live in the city, that we can use this to take as much money as possible. I mean, that's true in every state. That's definitely true of every race. And I don't want to sound this liberal, but like it really is like a white problem. Like white people created these systems that are being abused and exploited, and we're then using Somalis as the blame because it's such an abstract thing, like, oh, the Somalis, but really these are systems that were designed to be exploited, and then someone's getting a cut of that, and I'm imagining it's not all Somalis.
That's part of the way, like the strategy behind the way that they did it was to use race as a guard, where it's like, well, if anybody has anything to say about this fraud, you can just accuse them of being a racist or being whatever, because now we're, you know, but other people are, it's not just like Somalis benefiting from that.
That's the thing, yeah.
Diverse incentive.
And a lot of Somalis aren't benefiting. Some of them are, though. It's true. Like the way it's designed is really crazy that, like, you know, they'll pay for you to have an Escalade and a house and all. It's really hard on the locals. A lot of people in Minnesota are like, what the hell is going on? Like, I've worked all my life and I can't afford to live. Right. And then here's somebody.
That's how it works. I think God saw it. He's referring to that suicidal empathy. This could be an example of it, is when people want to be as tolerant and as welcoming and as cool as they can be. They want to be the best liberal they can be.
It's gremlins too.
Good intention. Look, I came into this with the best intentions. Let me tell you, I'm sorry things got so fucked up with us and Mr. Wallace. You know, it's just, you know.
But don't get water on them, and Minnesota's got a land of 10,000 lakes. It's just, you know.
But Andreas, I think you're being a little bit like a little reductive, a little oversimplistic.
I'm not saying Somalis are gremlins.
Well, a little bit, but I'll say that. I'll actually say
that. You're trying to make a connection there and have that association in people's mind. You're implanting
refugee populations can be treated like
an influencer, and you don't, you know.
When you're saying it's like, oh, it's not the Somalis, it's actually these like it's like the corrupt state, and was made to be like it can be 8 or 20 or 30 different things at once. And I've not to sound like a paranoid American or something, but I feel like it's ground zero of an infiltration of like a new like Arab state essentially. And showing that not all like that basically like their laws,
not long term,
Sharia law can actually supersede any sort of local or national laws as long as you get enough people. And this isn't a white or a black thing. They would never be able to do that. The same way
there's no long term future for Islam. Islam is a like a chemotherapy. Okay, it's
Sharia
not
law, whatever you want to call it.
No, Sharia law even. I'm just saying what they do with Islam. If you have a bunch of individualists, Islam is really useful because it takes all these wild chickens and it makes them all look the same direction. They'll either die out or they'll populate until you have a bunch of these Muslims. Like I get your point. The thing is that can't last. what ends up happening is you have an entire unified direction. They're easier to manipulate by a better targeting system. So you end up with a communist overthrow much quicker in a Muslim state than you would in an individualist state. So the idea is to get everyone Muslim so they can all become communists in a woke,
That's fine, but that doesn't refute any part of the process. You're just describing what happens in the Fabian long-term version, and I'm just describing what's happening in like the next 10, 15-year version.
Well, yeah, but it's like not even the next 10, 15 years. Like it's the last 20 years in Canada. Like look at Canada. Watch Degrassi. If you watch Degrassi, not just the old one, but the newest one, like class 19 or whatever, like the next class, it's like from 2016 on, after Next Generation, they have Muslim and gays at the school that want to have each one, is in their group, and the Muslims and the Palestinian rights group, they want to have a club meeting, and the gays, they need a club meeting, but the school only has enough room. They have to share the room. This is Canada. This is Degrassi. This is integration
in downtown Santa Cruz, where there'll be like a organized protest, and then all of these different groups show up, and they just get in like a full-on fight with each other. They're all well-meaning liberals, but they can't. They're so like, no, this protest is about this, and they're like, no, this protest is about this. No, ours about. It's like, and then
but what ends up happening is in the Degrassi, like the lesbian girl and who's like a punk rocker and the serious Sharia Palestine girl end up integrating, let's say. And there's more of that to come. That's the plan. Canada's just the real mixing pot for this. And we're going to end up with this gay Muslim woke Sharia state if they try.
I don't know if Degrassi's like the best source for getting like a perspective on like.
I do.
Ultimately. Okay.
You need to watch it more before you make,
more before I make that assessment.
Again, part of the point of this is that the way that you're saying like these liberals can't all collectively get together because then they all argue on the nuance.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to make some assumptions because I'm an ignorant American.
What I'm talking about is more than nuance. It's literally like factions, but go on. Yeah.
But if we were to go to Somalia right now and just grab random people from all across the entire country, it's not like they all cohesively already agree and form a unit, but
they kind of do.
Transplant all of these disconnected peoples that just happen to share a geographic region and culture. Now you transplant them and put them in Minnesota. Now they're a cohesive unit, despite whatever little inner workings and like little disagreements that they might have. All pales in comparison to the fact that they're now like they have their own little small ecosystem.
It's Thundercats.
It is okay. It's Thundercats, yeah, and Gremlins, whatever.
Life is a lot like crazy.
Not all of the new batch necessarily agree with each other. Clearly, they're killing each other, but when confronted with the rest of white America, they do bond together.
Can confirm I'm wearing a red shirt and have like new doppelganger facial hair. Yes, I am a commie. That's it. You got me. This must be what it is. There have been conversations because like I'm from California where I'm talking with David and David's like, we were talking about how bad communism is. I'm like, communism is not that bad. And David looks at me like, whoa, like all scared. Like I let a commie into my own house,
Commie? I got a commie in here?
He wants to be able to stay in Europe longer and longer each time, and I think that's like one of the new requirements. If you want to stay more than 2 months, you have to like publicly spread communism in America.
Debbie Harry do a song? Wasn't there a Blondie song that's like "Commie"? It was like
I'm not just a commie. I'm a Zionist. I am so Zionist. I'm pro Ashkenazis taking back Crimea in Ukraine. See, I'm like the most right. No,
I don't know what you think. I never really feel like I've truly ever like really gotten like I know you on a certain level, Andreas, but you're so full of mystery and intrigue, and there's a lot of esoteric sides to you that are hard to really really get in there and know what it is that makes me fit.
Gong show. All right. So, but wait, we didn't go all the way through Anna Nicole's things. Is there? And she's just always sitting there politely while we just like chauvinistically just meander.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have something you want, like we could go on the reset, or is there something you think we should like? What would you like us to point to?
We could talk about the rat. And the rat.
That sounds perfect because he is one, but he won't rat out the rat.
Yeah, he pled the fifth, but just like matrixly, all the things that are connected to. So that was a quote actually from the video. Is I don't even know the guy's name, but he's the one asking Fauci the questions, and he's like, "You wanted to be the sun god of science," and so that took it to Apollo, who is like the sun god, the god of plagues. The corona itself relates to this. Yeah. Oh yeah, you want to play it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna click it and then pause it.
Yeah, it's right in the beginning.
You gonna play it? What are you doing?
Oh, you want me to play it? Hold on.
I guess so.
I got to do a thing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need sound.
Do that thing.
So otherwise, it's just like looking at a painting. It's boring like that.
Yeah. So I quoted that one with that because there's just a lot of weird like Fauci like rat connection. Like, did you? Oh, is it gonna play?
Silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to blambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight.
Yeah.
You wanted to be the guy.
Sun Corona, Sun God, Son of God, the Jesus.
Well, because the initial like Hippocratic oath was an oath to Apollo that all the doctors would take, and so Apollo is a god of plagues as well, and like mice are related, like rats and mice are.
Yeah, Apollyon is like the at the top of the abyss in the Book of Revelation, right? I think Apollo literally means the destroyer. No. Isn't there a definition of Apollo? And then, I guess the idea is
9/11, right? Isn't that
right,
where
but
he's
it's so relatable because the idea, why is Apollo the destroyer? Apollo's the destroyer because he represents order and structure, and order and structure are needed for a cohesive functioning society. But if you take it too far, if you take law and order too far, it becomes a restriction on society to the point that it can lead to the downfall of a whole empire. And so like for Fauci, it's like he's all about order, right? And law. He's like, oh, they're just mandates. Oh, those aren't enforceable. Are they? I don't know. But yeah, so now it's like almost everything is, all the main components of COVID that people were projecting they've almost entirely been debunked, including what's now come out in his own diary. There's a misunderstanding from a lot of people around what diary means in this case. He's not a little girl writing in a little diary and somebody found it like Biden's daughter. What it is that he was using a work computer writing all this stuff and him processing what's going on. And because he emailed it to himself to have a record of it, that email that he sent to himself made it available to who he was working for. And so it is super incriminating. So now he has to plead the fifth. You can find a million quotes of Fauci saying, I will answer anything and everything. I have absolutely nothing to hide. And now the most basic questions, such as what color tie are you wearing, he refuses to answer. And I don't even know. The vote for him to be held in contempt is about to happen. And I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if they're actually going to do that. But apparently, because he's been pardoned with the auto pen or who knows, he isn't actually in a position to plead the fifth anymore, supposedly ever again. So I've been saying this for months. As I was like, well, shit, if they do
the Fifth Amendment
is not allowed to plead the fifth. And then here he is pleading the fifth.
You are, though, because the Fifth Amendment is for any charge that could be used against you, right? And so he's pardoned illegally, so arguably, except that the president has omnipotent power to do anything, right? We've argued this for the Republicans that this unitary executive power allows a president to do this. So he's been pardoned, if we're accepting that, for all federal crimes he could have committed from 2014, like decades ago, like until now. Then that's still just federal crimes. There's state crimes. Texas could totally take him down.
Actually, North Carolina could because Eco Health Alliance was operating out of North Carolina, and he, as head of NIH, he allowed for that funding to Wuhan to happen through North Carolina. So
any state where you could argue he endangered citizens could be could hold a trial against him, but also Russia's pushed for crimes against humanity charges. I think people will laugh at the idea that Russia would extradite him or be able to, but it's still, there internationally could be that he's indicted with charges for crimes against humanity. So him saying, I plead the fifth is actually relevant here because what he did is bigger than federal crimes, right? Like what he did is arguably something that could be an international crime against humanity.
You know that line, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage, according to Billy Corgan, was written about the producers, the people at the label that he was so frustrated with. And it was like the most angsty song in his opinion on that album Melancholy. But he said that he found it kind of ironic and weird that those very people who he was shouting that at in his mind, his rationale for communicating this, were the people that after the album came out were like, we need more of that, like that song, like do more of that. And he was like, that was all an FU to you, and you just want more of it. So it's very what is it, 10,000 Merits or whatever. It's the second episode of the first season of Black Mirror, where the guy is like basically has to do that Bernie Sanders thing where they stick the thing to his throat and you just repeat the line, keep saying the thing, and you're like basically being held hostage, but you're presenting it as though this is your liberation, but nothing ever happened. So they can use him in a paradoxical way repeatedly. But I mean, Fauci has just been a spokesperson for Big Pharma, going back with the AZT thing, when he's like, AZT is safe and effective. Well, it was being used for cancer. And then he was like, we'll just monopolize it in relation for AIDS. And that like script is exactly what happened with COVID. They just repeated the formula because it worked the first time.
Well, I like that you brought that up, because when we were talking about this earlier and spike protein, because I was thinking, like, how would you, what would the Sink Tank episode be if this podcast were happening right as Gremlins 2 actually came out? Like, you just came out of the theater, it would be on AIDS, right?
Yeah.
Right. True. Good point. Yeah, that's probably what people would have said about it in terms of the biolab stuff, you know, because there's all kinds. And that I mean, that documentary, that BBC documentary, The Origin of AIDS, is kind of a must see if for anybody who's interested in like it's such a central point of like what happened with AIDS, because as you're watching this documentary, it almost gives you the impression, oh, this is a bunch of malarkey that has started in this place in Africa. But then by the very end of the documentary, they basically show the cages that the apes were kept in, that they used their blood because they needed something with the right organic viscosity to spread.
I'm gonna keep calling it CIA. I think it's, I don't know.
Have you seen The Origin of AIDS from the BBC?
Yeah, I don't buy it still. It doesn't seem actually possible medically. Like, I get the idea, like, oh, it was such a terrible scenario, the blood was available. I don't see how blood's gonna break that barrier. It doesn't seem like viruses don't do that, you know, if they exist at all, you know.
Well, if you don't think that it's I mean, they know that the apes had AIDS. They know that they used for a fact that they used
first off, AIDS is an autoimmune disease, but disease is not the same as the virus. You can have an autoimmune disease without it being from HIV virus, right?
I'm not talking about HIV. There's a big distinction. That was the big thing of Kerry Mullis that he was basically able to prove, was that there's ultimately no real connection between AIDS and HIV, other than HIV makes you more susceptible to AIDS as it's spreading, because it's an autoimmune disease that weakens your defenses. So it's not that if you got HIV that it was a death sentence necessarily, but it became a death sentence for a lot of people because of the treatment, which is the same argument that people make about COVID. So, I mean, the argument in that at the end of that documentary is, you know, that this is basically an example of hubris, whatever the case, that without going through any real, you know, process to try and purify what they were working with, they just took the blood directly, put it in the oral vaccine, had people waiting in lines. It's a fact that the first cases ever recorded of AIDS all came from this one small village in Africa, and it happens to be the one that they were experimenting on the people with this vaccine, which was more of like a serum. Like, it's
that's the part that's more plausible than the monkey part. It's that they're constantly getting vaccinated, and people would travel from one hospital to the other hospital in Africa to get medicine, and medicine they just thought was good. So people would get vaccinated over and over and over and over and over and over again, like just like over again until it was,
The
you
guy,
know, in the
guy who was
40s
in
even.
charge of it was already a criminal. He was already basically an escaped criminal. Like he had a crazy criminal record, and they put him in charge of vaccinating all of these villagers. Like it's just like that in the first place. Like how did this guy was able to keep this job after everything that happened? You know, and then
Yeah,
they
but like,
interviewed
you know,
him
when
too,
you
and
look,
it's
the thing is,
crazy.
when you look at the timing and the Rand Corporation and everything they were worried about in terms of population density around the equatorial belt, and they thought that Africa was going to be reaching a population of 12 billion people by 1990, they thought, okay, here's the plan. And it just makes a lot of sense because even today, with all of the Eurocentric trappings to kind of curtail the population expansion in Africa, Africa is still like 4 to 5 billion people, right? Today. So imagine if it were more, I mean, that would probably make the European migrant population just like doubled or something, if or more, right? I think what the Rand Corporation was concerned about in the 50s. And they talked about it all the time. They said, we need to start outsourcing our factories to the equatorial belt so that places around the world can sustain those populations so they don't end up migrating to Europe and America, right? That was always the plan. And the alternative is now they're bringing people in to replace work because some of those tools that they use to try to curtail populations in equatorial belts around Africa have actually been applied to Scandinavian and Northern European zones, right? And also America now, and also North Asia. So Korea's population is 1.8. Everybody's shrinking except for the equatorial belt. And this is like a big reason I think it makes more sense than African negligence with monkey blood led to AIDS.
Not
You know?
Africans, it was Americans.
Yeah. You talk about the
Americans
doctors
were the
that are
ones
giving
who were
them the
running
vaccines.
the whole operation and using the Africans as kind of like guinea pigs under the guise of a humanitarian effort. And it's not that they gave them HIV, it's that they gave them AIDS and they already had weakened immune systems.
There was something
It's like,
symbolic about Fauci heading COVID and them using they were using like HIV type medication for treating COVID, but also that Band-Aid became like such the symbol of taking your COVID vaccine, right? Everyone's like, oh, I got you like your Band-Aid, and he was the head of AIDS. So I do feel like there was some sort of like layered connection to that.
Totally.
There was also like, okay, I had two more things to say. Going back to the mouse stuff, Fauci and the NIH was busted. Did you hear that when they bought fetal parts from Planned Parenthood and they were making humanized like mice, like they were grafting human baby skin onto like mice's backs and stuff?
I mean, we learned about the ear on the back of that rat in high school, I remember.
No, yeah. So this was like this was when
they weren't just grafting it. You're saying that they were taking
they were making human like human fetal like mice stuff. Yeah, not that.
Remember Mr. Garrison, you know?
Right.
In South Park?
Eek,
yeah, they grow his wiener on the end of a clone on a mouse.
Well, South Park had
funny
that.
enough.
The South Park movie had that one song about how everybody has AIDS.
Everybody has AIDS. Yeah, that was the Team America World Police movie.
I just want to point out that the way they're able to grow that ear on the mouse was to completely disable its immune system.
Nice.
Like that was what allowed. That's what it actually said. Mouse lacking an immune system with an engineered. Like they couldn't have done the ear mouse without removing its immune system.
AIDS is a game changer for genetic modification because it stops the thing from fighting against integration. It's probably like a Gremlins thing.
Okay, well, so also I think another sync is that remember how Gene Hackman was associated with like the hantavirus, which is also it was either him or his wife that died from the hantavirus, which came from the mice, and and his like the fact that his name was Gene Hackman,
right? Hacking Gene,
and how Fauci was like or I don't know if it was Fauci, but he was pushing like the human gene hacking vaccine on everybody.
Yeah, it feels relatable because of the immunity thing, but like I the point at which I became absolutely sure that Bill Gates was a fake anthropologist. No, it shouldn't be obvious enough anyway, but like a concrete example was when I found out. I was like, when I was in India, I saw a lot of leprosy, and it's not the biblical leprosy, it's today's version that they call by the same name, where people are just missing limbs and they pull up my clothes. Oftentimes if you walk through Delhi, like you have to like go under, it feels like a train station, but there's no train. There's all of these dark tunnels that if you just want to get from one part of town to another, you go underneath the streets. And every time you go down those stairs, there's lepers. And if they see a white person, they're just like, they'll pull at you and they'll beg for money. And, the best thing you can probably do, as degrading as it is like literally just take change and like throw it on the ground so that they'll leave you alone and just go for the change, like it's like one of those weird awkward things as a white person walking around India. But
I don't know, being a white person in India throwing money at the ground for people to scramble for sounds like a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, anyway, I had to do that a couple times because it was just too much. I got too overwhelmed by people pulling at my clothes, and sometimes I'm missing a limb or something. It's just like it's horrifying.
Yeah, that's less
also
fun.
a point of reflection, and everyone should experience it for their own humility, as if you come from a place of privilege. But anyway, I would like I would like look into like what is the deal with, like, is there a cure for this? Because I was told that myself and like Amachi, like who I stood in line with 1,000 lepers to hug Amachi. Like I followed her from place to place, and then one of the places I went with, it was almost entirely lepers. So I was just like, I didn't know what I was in for. I was just like, oh, she's going to this place to hug a bunch of people, But the thing is, they say with Amachi, like the reason why she doesn't catch leprosy is because she has a really strong immune system. Like if you have a strong immune system, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. You're probably not going to catch it. It's that weakened immune system, which relates to HIV. But I was looking into it. I was like, is there a cure for this? There is absolutely a cure for leprosy. And it's part of a large regimen that involves certain antibiotics. It's not like you take a miracle drug and this takes care of it. There's a whole like basic lifestyle thing and different things that you have to do.
It's soap. If you just keep washing yourself, you don't get leprosy. And if you get leprosy, then you have to take antibiotics.
Once somebody
antibacterial.
has leprosy, is there a way to treat it that works? And there absolutely is.
Yeah.
If you've already lost a limb, you're not growing that limb back. But if you look into it, this exists. It involves antibiotics. It's a whole thing. So you ask Bill Gates, what are you going to do about this leprosy problem that exists in India? And his response, we're working on a vaccine for that. Why is he working on a vaccine for that instead of like spreading this regimen, having facilities, investing? Why? Because there's no profit in it like there is with vaccines. Vaccines can bring them a 20-to-1 return. Like it's so obvious.
I don't feel like Bill Gates is in charge of himself at all. I feel like at this point, they control him so completely with like him being on court and admitting what he did with his wife and the prostitutes and Epstein. Like I think, if anything, he was always kind of a shell company like front man, and now he doesn't even have the value of that because people hate him so much.
Okay.
Symbolically, like the gates represent hell. And so during COVID, they parted, and Bill and Melinda like parted during COVID, which is kind of like a parting of the gates of hell symbolically. Because we did enter a lower dimension, it feels like, after COVID happened.
Oh yeah. In 2020, I was making memes where I just have Bill Hartford from Eyes Wide Shut at the gate and just like, all right, Bill Gates, he's just like at the gate, and it's like, give up your inquiries, drop it. Like it felt like as a skeptic of a lot of the things that were being presented from the media and the quote unquote experts, is like, I kind of felt like a little bit of that Bill Hartford feeling as far as social media goes, where it's just like, give up your inquiries or there'll be consequences. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait, I was trying to figure out what's going on here. And they're just like, I'm at the gate. And it's like, and Bill Gates and company is just like, no, go away. But yeah, I'm just making a simple point that I feel like that is one of many examples where if he was a true philanthropist in the real sense of the term, he would be focusing on how do we build more facilities and give people the opportunity to heal themselves of this ailment. Like, and instead, no, we're working night and day
But I don't
get
think
something
it's
that's
just
fictional.
as simple as like this is like when people say the Iraq war is about oil or something. Like I don't think things are that simple. I think it's a lot more occulted, and the goal is population control and environment control. So not just to control the quantity of population, but the quality of the population and its environment. And
His incentive is secondary to the obvious point.
yeah,
So what his agenda is actually a secondary conversation to what is happening. Why is he doing this rather than that? And I would say it has everything to do with profit on a certain level, but it sure as shit doesn't stop there. So,
well, we were watching Star Wars Episode 2. I just put the sync up on X if you guys want to watch it. It has Star Wars to Michael Jackson's His Story Part 1, which is exactly the same length as Star Wars Episode 2. I think there's 15 seconds of difference or something. I don't know if that's right. But point is, it's so accurate, and every song and every scene, they start on the same ones. And all I want to say is they don't really care about us plays when he has to kill the Sand People. And I don't want to ruin it for you. But there's a scene that, David finds to be cartoonish and reminds me of Monsters Inc. It's it's probably the worst scene in Attack of the Clones, where they're in this giant factory and it just looks kind of silly, like they're in this giant factory. It could have been a lot better. It could have been like the Jurassic Park kitchen scene at the end where they're in these small cramped quarters and stuff. It's too bad. But that scene is all about how they're discovering on this insectoid planet that the insectoids are working with the Trade Federation to both make this droid army, but also genetically modify DNA so people will have the same insectoid ability to connect to this hive mind, right? And I think that's kind of interesting because we don't really think about what was the insectoid thing that came up recently? There was a thing about this. But, Cynthia Sue Larson, who we had on the show at one point, we talked about genetically modifying millennials and Generation Z to have insectoid hive mind. It's like all of those scenes are supplanted right in Star Wars to show you the future that we're a part of, where insectoids are changing us.
Going back to bugs being
yeah.
demons.
I forget why. Oh, yeah, bugs. Maybe that's good. Bugs and demons and gods. That might be it. But yeah, the hive mind thing. I mean,
in the original Gremlins, the film that's being projected in the classroom, and he goes, "Is that a human heart?" And they say it's the heart of a rabbit, right? They're watching a rabbit's heart beating, and it's playing when the cage falls over and the gremlin gets out, right? Isn't that how that goes down? I believe. Just saying, it's another bugs, like the whole bunny thing. I don't know. Like in Inner Space, wasn't the same thing that they're experimenting with the rabbit?
He's supposed to be in a rabbit. Yeah.
Supposed to go in the rabbit, but it ends up going into Martin Short.
Follow the White Rabbit, Playboy bunnies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All work and no play. Make Jack a dull boy. Play boy. Come on.
What's Sectars? Is this real? Is this something
Jack Rabbit Slims, and Elvis Man should love it.
I've never seen Sectars.
Oh, you've never seen Sectars? Okay, I thought this would be totally your angle. This is a 1980s cartoon series, but was about human insect hybrids that now controlled the universe.
There you go.
Good ones and bad ones. But in my mind, this was an early version of hey, not only will you eat the bugs, but you will become one with bugs in a far enough distant future. But it's a good thing because there's good guys that are using their insect hybrid powers to fight the bad insects.
Nicole Kidman, advertising eating bugs all the time now. That's her new thing, right? She makes all these PSAs about how they should eat crickets and insects and how delicious they are.
Does that really?
Yeah, a lot of the time. Yeah.
Does it help with the Botox and all this stuff? Is there a cosmetic side, or is it just
people say that eating insects, it's high protein, so that it's you can be on the Atkins and keto, and you lose weight and everything.
The Baptist diet, right?
But he ate honey fried locusts and other stuff too, and eating nothing but locusts could have, I forget, someone in the comments remind me what the problem is with eating nothing but crickets. You get this muscle lactin acid, or there's some kind of issue that you don't want to do that if you eat nothing but insects. It's like not great for you.
If you eat nothing but any particular thing, it's probably going to do a number on you, unless it's maybe, I don't know,
Isn't there,
lemons and
like,
avocado.
their exoskeletons? Like, isn't it damaging to our intestines?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't remember the medical thing. There was,
Maybe-
I thought
maybe
it was
they need to
more
be
than that.
salted. They need to be salted, and you need to drink a lot of water.
But like usually they grind them all up and then they make them into those pastes, and then you have milkshakes. They like chocolate protein powder made from them, and people drink it with like soy milk. The soy milk and crickets, right?
What is she doing in this picture? What is she doing? Is she eating bugs in this picture?
She's eating
with
bugs,
chopsticks?
dude.
So she's on a stage eating bugs with chopsticks. What is she? Is this just a PR campaign?
Go to the
for Klaus
YouTube, watch
Schwab?
the YouTube video of it. She actually eats the bugs and like has this whole thing about it there, you know? She has several videos of her eating bugs and talking about how great it is to eat, her secret talent. It's super weird, right?
How is that a secret talent?
Well, you know how like Playboy and like porn stars and like burlesque shows, like they have their secret talent? I think maybe that's the aesthetic.
I had to reevaluate some of
Her
my
bug trick.
ideas around that, like the Grateful Dead, because I've never liked the Grateful Dead really. Like I can listen to them and it's cool, whatever. Some songs in particular. like
Yeah,
Dark
I'm not I mean, that's how you
like-
know you're not a Fed. You don't really like the Grateful
But
Dead.
I was in an altered state at a camp out years ago, and I'm talking to this woman. She's talking to me, and she's telling me she was raised going to Grateful Dead shows like her whole childhood. She's like, I went to like 200 Grateful Dead shows by the time I was 12 or something. I was like, God damn. And she was explaining to me the significance of Grateful Dead and all this stuff. And it started to make sense. I was like, okay, it's more about the people than it is the band, And I was like trying to like wrap my head around it. And
Yeah,
then
it's like
she goes-
ITP.
She goes,
Juggalo.
I just won a larva eating contest. And I was like, I have so many questions. I'm like, okay, like how many people were part of this? And she was like, well, there's hundreds of people that were participating in the larva eating contest. So I'm like, you have hundreds of people all eating larva?
Hundreds of
And she was
thousands
like,
of
yeah.
larvae.
And you won? Like, I was like, you ate more larva than anybody else? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, what did you win? And she was like, well, they didn't give me anything. And I was like, so you get the satisfaction of saying you won a larva eating contest. There's
Dead
no
show.
prize. And I was like, and this is what the Grateful Dead produced?
That's
Because
I
you
mean,
should be the
that's-
prototype of the evolution that the
That's
Grateful
like
Dead
a
were.
dead thing to do, is to be like consumed by larva or whatever, right? Like there's something like connected there. Like the bugs eat us when we're dead, and right now like
We're eating the bugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Circle of
And
life.
I was like, what should you like? You're an anomaly, right? I was like, you were basically raised by the Grateful Dead in the
It's
scene.
not an anomaly.
You
There's a
could be
lot of
anything, you could be
deadhead kids.
that went to like 200 plus shows or
Yeah.
something by the time. you're
One of
12?
my
Okay.
first girlfriends was a girl who was raised by deadheads, had the exact same scenario her whole life.
I'm from Santa Cruz. I
Same.
met a lot of deadheads who were like their childhood was, like they were raised in the scene. But she's the only one I've met who's like has this like staggering, like that's all her parents
Well,
did.
yeah, I know a bunch of people. I don't want to say their names because what they're involved with, but generally, they spent their whole lives with their parents selling merchandise at dead shows.
Okay.
And
There's a
so then-
lifestyle, there's a lot of okay. But I don't know. To me, to like if like you could be like what she would be is like this kind of like representative of like what does this experimental lifestyle produce?
Yeah.
I mean, she's cool. She seemed cool, but like this is your claim to fame is that you won a larva eating contest. I mean, maybe it was just superfluous. Maybe it was just in that like that was just something that happened for her recently, and she's just telling me. Maybe it's not that big of a deal to her. But it seemed like it was.
Ornithophilia is the sexual interest in being crawled upon or nibbled by insects. That's not fun. Like ants hurt.
This is a tickling sensation, and I don't know. Makes sense.
Yikes.
A ticklish feeling, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm convinced that
all
insectoids are totally modifying kids. Like these kids now, the young ones, the younglings, they're all hive mind. They're all, they all see the same thing at the same time. They all act the same way. Their idea of hanging out is to all be, together online like this. There's no outside anymore. There's no engagement. Like
So
we're
is it
doing
like
this.
the Gremlins, where every generation has become more and more degraded.
I don't know. I mean, because that's not the Blavatsky way. I think it's like maybe it has to get worse before it gets better,
You
before the
say the
transfiguration.
Blavatsky way, but Blavatsky's talking about evolution, and it
Yeah.
could be that the gremlins are de-evolution and would work the exact opposite way, which is what Nicole is saying, right? No?
No, she was talking about the kids though, like that are insectoid, genetically modified. Are they just like a devolution? And I don't think they're a devolution. I think the insectoids find democracy confusing. Like you wouldn't have voting in a hive colony. Like, but
Wait, but didn't
ants
she
aren't
say
voting.
that like the gremlins, like she's like likening it to the gremlins? Am I correct, or did I mishear that?
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if like, because I remember at some point, and I don't know where I learned this, but like they said like when in families, like the younger kids are more problematic because like the firstborn has got like the most like, I don't know, whatever genetic material in them, and then like every child after that becomes just like a little bit worse.
Yeah, it's the opposite of pancakes. You're supposed to throw away that first pancake, right?
Yeah.
So like firstborns will be like, well, I was the first pancake, so this is what I got. But I think maybe it's different when it comes to what like if you're relating to the gremlins, it's not just about who's more adaptive or something. It's that Spike is the evilest of the gremlins, and he's the real thinker, unless if he drinks a brain serum, then but I don't know. He's a leader, and that's what Corey Feldman said. We also just watched the Corey Feldman documentary, which is amazing, by the way. Not the story of rape of two Hames, whatever, but the one that's like it's Corey Feldman versus the world. It felt to me to be like a very honest, kind of like a real documentary. Like it didn't feel like it was biased one way or the other. It's just literally just showing you what's happening. But yeah, I don't know. Remember, it was Corey Feldman in Gremlins who was like, pointing out certain things. Like he was like, or maybe it was Billy who said the one with the stripe seems to be the leader. But yeah, at least he's asking the right questions, I guess, as his friend. But it was also Corey Feldman's fault that Gizmo got splashed with water to begin with. He's like knocked over the container with water in it.
Yeah, he set those stage in motion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I don't think that they're necessarily bad. I think maybe these new kids are okay for what the world that we're being put into, where they're going to be integrated into a network, right? Like if you had Airbnbs into people's heads, it would be great if everyone had kind of a unified software. People don't think about this, but we don't have actually like encryption for the human mind. Like when you try to hack into a computer, at least there's password protection. It might not work very well, but if I were to just play radio waves at your head, there's nothing stopping your head from just picking up those radio waves. There's no password protection system built into you, except for your own conscious choice to try to ignore certain things. But even then, they can play signals that can force people to lift their arms and start moving their bodies now. So in the future, having people that have a unified kind of way of behavior would make it way easier to leap from one body to another body for a period of time.
This gremlin drank the substance that they put into the rat, that they put like a light bulb on the rat, and then he like touched the rat, and he like zaps his hand, and then Christopher Lee zapped his hand. He's like, you need to make it so that it won't do that or whatever. It's like you got an electric rat, but then that was the substance, I guess, that this gremlin drank that turned him into the lightning gremlin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, what are you doing this week, Paranoid?
Well, this weekend is the Bohemian Grove, which is a comedy conspiracy festival. And I think they added Christian onto the end of that. So that might scare you off, Andreas, but it doesn't scare me off. So that's going to be I think it's on Saturday and Sunday in Wildwood, Florida, right outside of Orlando.
It doesn't sound as funny with the word Christian in it, but maybe.
Owen Benjamin will be there. And I'm sure
well, now it sounds funnier.
Now he's going to bring up orthodoxy at some point, I'm sure.
Oh, I love Owen. He's great.
So if you want more details on that, you should go and check out brogrove.com. It's being hosted by Nephilim Death Squad, Raven and Top Lobster. I'll be there. I'll be showing off some new stuff. I don't know. I don't have my lighting set up to show this off properly. And I'm also the one in charge of all of this. This is a lot to do at once. But this is one of the latest Paranoid play sets. And if you can look in there, this is the Bigfoot Podcaster play set.
Oh, cute.
So it's one of the only like family friendly ones. The other ones have got like Hillary Clinton drinking blood and like fun stuff like that. But this is going to be a fun one. So I'll be doing that. If there's any left after Bro Grove this next coming weekend, I'll have them listed at paranoidamerican.com, where you can get all of your favorite conspiracy needs: trading cards, comic books, action figures, conspiracy themed, of course.
Is there going to be Wooks at Bohemian Grove?
Wooks,
like Trustafari and Wooks. Do you know those guys? Maybe you're not in California.
You know, they have dreadnecks in Florida, but we're like a Wook is kind of like a dreadneck, but they what's the difference really? I guess a dreadneck works harder, and a Wook has Abercrombie and like a Mercedes their parents gave them, or a Lexus.
It's the only group that I'm actually kind of racist towards, because I have a predisposition to just like be annoyed at Wooks. Like if I camp in the wrong place at some party in the woods, and then like I wake up and it's just like they're surrounding my tent doing whippets, and then like it's not just that they're doing whippets, that's fine, they're harmless, but it's the art. It's like they're fighting with each other. Oh, I already gave you one, man. I already like to just like they're so just like negative, and they're like, but oftentimes they're Trustafarians. So like they had some trust fund, and now they're just festival goers, and they wear the same kind of ball cap, and they have the same kind of dready like it's not just dreads. It's like where they have like the beaver tail in the back, where it's just collected into one massive dread in part. It's just the worst. But like I pointed out to my friend at one time where I was like, dude, I got to admit, dude, like I am fully like experiencing racism against the Wooks, dude. Like I can't fucking stand them right now. And like he'd be like, dude, it's not all the Wooks, okay? It's just the ones who like sneak in for free, or the ones that like, you know, like there's certain Wooks, yeah, it's a problem, but he's like, it's not all the Wooks. So because that's what you say when somebody's like, I can't stand this group of people, look at what they're doing. It's like, hey, you know, hits somebody says hippies definitely annoying and will often steal your stuff while lying to your face. Yep, namaste. Dude, get out of my house, dude. You've been on my couch for a week, dude. I'm over it. Namaste.
Namaste. You can go. Namaste.
I can say with pretty utmost confidence there will not be any Wooks at Bohemian Grove. It's not that kind of party.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't believe it one bit. There's definitely some Bigfoot lovers. Well, okay. And then MK Ultrasound, you should maybe show his page on X. We just watched like several really rad sync films. What did we see? We saw
the last one we watched was Jesus Christ Superstar with Antichrist Superstar, which was the only one that I put out into the world that got close to being viral or whatever. Years ago, I had it on Vimeo. I think I got close to like 1 million views or something. And I think that the reason why people took to it more than the other ones was because when you look at it, it's just like, well, duh. Like, it's like, Jesus Christ,
obviously
Superstar, Antichrist Superstar. Like, you don't have to think about it. A lot of my syncs, people have to at least like know some context or think for a second to be like, wait, what's the connection here? And they're like, aha. So it's an immediate aha. So it's like even the squares are just like, oh well, of course you do that, you know. But yeah, we watched that. It's kind of fun.
Oh
yeah.
Let me just throw in too another sync movie that I randomly watched this week just because I was like going through a backlog of movies that I've had but I haven't watched. This is a horror anthology called From a Whisper to a Scream, and it's got Vincent Price as like a narrator quasi through it, and he's on the cover. He regretted it. Apparently he like didn't ever want to actually do this, and he feels like he got like tricked into it and then held hostage through the contract. But anyways, it's a horror anthology movie. It reminded me a little bit of like Tales from the Hood or like the Twilight Zone movie. But one of the little vignettes is about gremlins inside of a World War II engine, like a plane engine. So I just thought that was right when you guys are talking about Gremlins 2, about being related to the World War II gremlins. Like, damn, that gremlins were in this freaking movie too.
Yeah,
excellent. And then Paranoid Americans page, MK Ultra's 723, and then Anna Nicole Wordsmith on X. You should follow all of her syncs. I mean, we ranted, and I feel like we did a disservice to you because we could have shown a lot more of your syncs. But the best syncs we saw today are probably some of Anna Nicole Wordsmith's. I mean, the Fired and Ice and the Rats.
I would love to talk more about like the Great Reset and like the significance of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't like Andreas and I were seeing something. Was it last night or something? I was just like, dude, I don't feel like they got really what they wanted. They got like a part of it, and it's like you can see it in Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset, like when he coined the term, like what he was really after. I feel like it was kind of thwarted. I feel like, and maybe this is, people can make fun of me and call me too much of an optimist or naive or something, but I feel like America, like removing itself from the WHO is a really important move. Like I think we have been making some good moves to like avoid this freaking total insanity happening in the future again. But yeah, I mean, fool me once, shame on me, you know, but Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Word.
Nightcrawler.
But yeah, so follow in Nicole Wordsmith, and we'll see you guys next time.